Hello, my dear students in grade 7. I hope you are all fine. And I really miss you all so much. This week we have a new mathematics lecture, but we are still in the same lesson that we started last week. And our title was Addition and Subtraction of Integers. What are the objectives of this week? Number one, we will learn how to add signed numbers. Number two, subtract signed numbers. Number three, apply PEMDAS, the order of operation, on numerical expressions with signed numbers. Objective number one, add signed numbers. If you are adding two signed numbers, we look at the signs of the given numbers. So whenever we see signed numbers and in between we have a plus, we should look at the sign of the first number and the sign of the second number. So as you see in this table, these are the rules for adding integers or signed numbers. Rule number one, if we are adding two positive numbers, so the sign of the first number is positive, the sign of the second number is positive. The sign of the answer will be positive and we add both numbers. Let me give you an example. I'm adding positive 4 with positive 8. So since the first number is positive, the second number is positive, so the sign of the answer will be positive and we add both numbers. 4 plus 8 is 12. The second rule, I'm adding two negative numbers. So the first number is negative, the second number is negative. The sign of the answer will be negative and we add both numbers. I'm adding negative 3 with negative 5. So the first number is negative, the second number is negative, so the answer will be negative and I add 3 plus 5 is 8. Rule number 3, I'm adding a positive number with a negative number. So here I'm adding different signs. What I do here is I look for the greatest number and the sign of the result will be the sign of the greatest number and I subtract both numbers. For example, plus 5 plus minus 11. Since the first number is positive and the second number is negative, which number is greater, 5 or 11? Of course, 11 is bigger. So what is the sign of 11? It's minus, so the answer will be negative. And I say 11 minus 5 is 6, so my answer is minus 6. I'm adding a positive number also with a negative number or a negative with a positive. Also, we take the sign of the greatest number and we subtract. Minus a 3 added to plus 9. Since the first is negative, the second is positive. Who's the greatest, 3 or 9? Of course, 9 is the greatest. Its sign is positive, so my answer will be positive and I subtract. 9 minus 3 is 6. Let's practice this exercise. Calculate. Plus 5 added to plus 10. Since I have addition, the first is positive, the second is positive, so the sign of the answer will be positive and I add 5 plus 10 is 15, so my answer will be positive 15. I'm adding negative 6 with negative 1. Negative plus negative, my answer will be negative and I add 6 plus 1 is 7, so minus 7. Plus 13 added to minus 7, a positive with a negative. Who's the greatest, 13 or 7? Of course, it is 13. Since the sign of 13 is positive, so my answer will be positive and I subtract, so my answer will be positive 6. Since 13 minus 7 is 6. Minus 9 added to plus 2. Also a negative added to positive. My answer is as the sign of the greatest. Since 9 is the greatest and its sign is negative, so my answer will be negative and I subtract. 9 minus 2 is minus 7. Positive 7 plus 0. If I'm adding a positive number to 0, my answer will not change. It will be 7 or positive 7. 0 plus negative 11, also adding 0 to any number gives me the number itself. It's minus 11. Minus 8 plus negative 4. So I'm adding two negative numbers. My answer will be negative and I add 8 plus 4, so it's minus 12. 2 plus minus 7, of course, the sign of 2 is positive. So a positive added to negative, who's the greatest? Of course, it's 7. Its sign is minus, so my answer would be negative, and I subtract 7 minus 2 is 5. Please practice this exercise while watching the video. This is very important. So these are the rules of adding signed numbers. Now, we have an important rule which says addition of two opposite signed numbers is 0. Do you still remember opposite signed numbers? They are numbers having the same number but different signs. One is positive, the other is negative, or one is negative, the other is positive. For example, about opposite signed numbers, plus 6 minus 6, plus 5 minus 5, minus 10 plus 10. These are opposites. So whenever we are adding opposite signed numbers, our answer will be 0. Positive 6 plus negative 6 is 0, since these are opposite numbers. Plus 10 plus minus 10 is 0. Minus 4 plus positive 4 is 0. Negative 12 plus 12 is 0. Negative 25 plus positive 25 is 0. Now, to prove that two signed numbers are opposites, we add them. So whenever you are asked to prove that two numbers are opposite, add these numbers. If their answer is 0, then these numbers are opposites. Let me give you an example. I'm asked, are the two numbers positive 7 and negative 7 opposites? I will say, to prove that positive 7 and negative 7 are opposites, we add them. So I say positive 7 plus negative 7. The answer is 0. Then positive 7 and negative 7 are opposite signed numbers. Now we move to how we subtract signed numbers. Subtract means I'm using the minus sign in between the signed numbers. To subtract two signed numbers, we have steps. So I will give you directly an example. Minus 11 minus negative 9. So since I have minus in between the signed numbers here, this is the operation. So here we have subtraction. Whenever we have subtraction, we should follow steps. Step number 1, we write the first number as it is. So the first number is minus 11. I write it as it is. Step number 2, the minus operation, we change it into plus. So we change the minus into plus. Step number 3, we write the opposite of the second number. So we find the opposite of minus 9. Now minus 11 plus, what's the opposite of minus 9? It is plus 9. Now we go back to addition steps. I have addition. Two signed numbers, one is negative, one is positive. Since they are different, I look for the greatest. 11 is the greatest, its sign is minus, so my answer will be minus, and I subtract. Always the bigger minus the smaller. 11 minus 9 is 2. Let's solve these exercises together. Minus 6 minus positive 4. Since I have subtraction, I should follow the steps. We write the first number minus 6 as it is. We change minus into plus, and we find the opposite of positive 4. The opposite of positive 4 is negative 4. Now we have addition of two negative numbers, so my sign will be negative, and I add 6 plus 4 is 10. Positive 5 minus positive 8. I keep the first number plus 5 as it is, change minus into plus. The opposite of plus 8 is minus 8. Now I'm adding a positive with a negative. The greatest is 8. Its sign is minus, so the answer will be negative, and I subtract. 8 minus 5 is a 3. Negative 10 minus negative 10. I have subtraction. Also, I follow steps. We write negative 10 as it is, change minus into plus. The opposite of negative 10 is positive 10. As you can see, I'm adding two opposite numbers. As I said, the rule says the answer when adding two opposite numbers is 0. 0 minus positive 9. Since I have minus, I should follow steps. So I write 0 plus. The opposite of 9 is negative 9. So if I'm adding any number to 0, it gives me the number itself, minus 9. Now, how we apply PEMDAS on numerical expressions with signed numbers. PEMDAS means order of operation. To calculate the value of a numerical expression, we apply rules of order of operation, which are PEMDAS. If we look at this numerical expression, we have signed numbers, and in between we have plus, 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 plus. So I'm adding all these signed numbers. When all the operations are addition, the rule of PEMDAS says we start from left. So we start from left. The first two, I'm adding a positive with a negative, so my answer will be negative as the greatest, and we subtract 6 minus 5 is negative 1. Here also I'm adding, so I start from left. Minus 1 plus positive 10 is as the greatest positive, and we subtract 10 minus 1, so it's positive 9. Also, I start from left. As you can see, I'm underlining where I'm calculating. I'm adding a positive with a negative. The greatest is 9. Its sign is positive, and we subtract, so it is positive 2. Now, also, I start from left. I'm adding a positive with a negative. The sign is 5 is negative, and we subtract, so it is negative 3. Now, we still have two numbers only. I'm adding a negative with a positive. The sign of the greatest 11 is positive, and we subtract, so my answer is positive 8. Let's solve another example. If I start from left, I have subtraction. So I apply the steps of subtraction. I write the first number as it is. We change minus into plus, and we find the opposite of positive 7, which is negative 7. Also, I start from left. I'm adding a negative with a negative, so my answer will be negative, and I add. 9 plus 7 is negative 16. Also, I start from left. I'm adding a negative with a negative. 16 plus 1, so it is negative 17. These are opposites. I'm adding two opposite numbers, so the answer will be 0. This is how we apply PEMDAS on signed numbers. And here you still have an exercise to solve. This is a solved exercise. Since I have addition, I start from left. Positive 8 plus 6, it's 14, or positive 14. Here, if I start from left, I'm adding a negative with a negative, so it's negative 11 minus positive 11. We change minus into plus, and we find the opposite of the second number. So it's minus 11 plus positive 11 opposites. The answer is 0. Minus 9 plus minus 9. I'm adding two negative numbers, so my answer will be negative, and we add, so it's negative 18. Here I have subtraction, so I apply the steps of subtraction. 0 plus the opposite of negative 7. 0, the opposite of negative 7 is positive 7, so my answer is 7. Here I'm subtracting two signed numbers, so I apply the steps of subtraction. Positive 5 plus positive 5, it is positive 10. Please, all the exercises solved on these slides are very important for you to solve in draft before start solving the worksheet that I send every week. This was our lecture for this week. Please watch the video well, and whenever you have any question regarding this video, please contact me. Thank you. Bye.